Let's bring in Seth Davis. He, of course, from CBS Sports. You know, that Loyola Marymount team was so far ahead of everybody in basketball. When you think about what they were doing, when they were doing it, this is what the game is now, certainly in the NBA.
Yeah, and it's kind of, when you mention that, so many unbelievable memories, obviously, from not only that team, but that era. And it's interesting that nobody has really tried to do that. Now we have the analytics and we have the three-point shot and the spacing and all of that. But just the frenetic, early shot clock attempt, no matter what. There's like that Division III school, Grinnell College,
Yeah.
which is that way. And there's some dispute, and it's an interesting conversation. Is that really basketball? I mean, are they trying to win? The thing about that Loyola Marymount team is they were really good. I mean, they won a lot of games playing that way. It's just interesting that, in today's era, especially with the portal, you think a lot of players would want to try to play that way.
But also, we want to take a three. We'll give you a two. We're going to take a three. And Paul Westhead, had great shooters on that team, great scorers on that team. And really, you haven't seen anybody replicate that in Division I basketball, which, given the fact that everybody wants to shoot threes, you would think that would be something if they found a couple of really good 3-and-D guys that you'd be able to incorporate that. All right, I got off on a tangent there. What if North Carolina loses tonight, Seth?
I do not like the better question is what if North Carolina makes a Sweet 16? Does that mean they deserve to get in? No. The tournament is nuts. Stop trying to make sense. Everybody wants to make sense. Oh, Gonzaga, that means they shouldn't have gotten. Remember, Wichita State didn't get the right seed. Oh, that shows that. No. The tournament, it all starts over again. There are a lot of teams that that are not in this tournament that could win a few games. We've had two teams in the last 14 years go from the first four to the Final Four. We don't need to get off on another tangent, but I happen to be a proponent of expansion partly for this reason. I mean, imagine, by the way, Dan, we've got 2 games tonight and 2 games tomorrow night. How excited are your listeners about those games? Maybe not really, but if there were 6 games today and 6 games tomorrow, I think there'd be a lot more excitement. But yeah, I encourage people, please don't use NCAA tournament results to retroactively justify whatever narrative you're trying to create.
Could we have total transparency with the selection committee and they would allow us to see and hear what goes on behind the scenes? Is that asking too much, invading somebody's privacy to let us see so there is no discrepancy? So we do hear the arguments here.
Right. So I start with this baseline. No matter what happens, when that bracket comes out, people are going to be pissed. And some opportunistic governor is going to do whatever he does, and everyone's going to get on social media. Everybody's going to be pissed no matter what happens. I got half my timeline criticizing me for fawning over the committee and Bubba Cunningham when I asked him the question on the selection show. And the other half thinks that I am totally unfair, Duke hack, who set him up for an unfair question. It's just the nature of the zeitgeist. This happened with the college football playoff when Alabama didn't get in. So I think the basketball committee, I think the football is way behind on this, and I understand this is the first year that they've done this. The basketball committee and the NCAA in general has been extremely transparent about the process. Why do you think there are 250 or 500 bracketologists out there all using the numbers? Everything is out there. At the end of the day, it becomes very subjective. You get 7 teams for 3 spots, right? That's the math. And so I've actually, frankly, talked to them about putting a pool reporter in the room so they can report on the person in the room can report on that, at least maybe for the bracketing, because everybody has a million conspiracies. Oh, they obviously they just want to set up a Tino and Calipari. They used to, and they haven't done this in a while, Dan, they actually used to do a mock selection where they bring in members of the media, such as myself, put them in the actual committee room on the actual committee computers and have them go through, a truncated process so we all understand what the process is. At the end of the day, I get the argument that, hey, these are big decisions and we want people to be able to speak freely. And if there's a camera in the room, they can't speak freely and have a real candid discussion about things. It's a very difficult position to be in because they're subject to such criticism. So look, I disagree with the North Carolina decision. By the way, go to all these bracketologists who are up in arms. All of them had Carolina in their first 4 out. Many of them had Carolina as their first team out or their second team out. And every year there is a team that comes sort of from further down the list, but people don't expect to be in. It's a little unfortunate that this year that team happened to be the school where not just someone on the committee, but the actual chair
Yeah.
of the committee is the AD from that school, and he's got an incentive in his contract. It's all Bubba mice, Dan. I disagree, but that doesn't make it corrupt.
Yeah, I just there's so much money at stake. There's jobs at stake. I want to make sure they get it right. It's just like the college football playoffs. I want to make sure they get it right.
Wouldn't you agree though that there is no right at the end of the day? It's otherwise the better answer, Dan, would be let's not have any human beings do it. Let's have an algorithm and let's plug in the numbers and let's let the AI computer or whatever, we'll use your image, AI generated to, but why even have people in the room? It's subjective. You're going to get what the football went from 4 to 12. That means whoever's 13 is going to be mad. It's just math.
Yeah, okay, so why don't we do that? Or why don't we let Vegas decide who are the teams that should be in?
There's a case for that. Listen, I've made the case, and I'll give Joe Lenardi credit for being one of the first to really say this. People talk about the eye test. I don't think there should be an eye test. Oh, look at them. They both like UC Irvine and UC San Diego. Look at this game. They both have you seen every team play every game this year? Because I watch a lot of basketball and I haven't done that, but those numbers have seen that. So there is some subjectivity built into the really on the fringes of the process. 90% of what happens and who's in and where they're seated and where they play is pretty baked in. So it's only in that last maybe 10% where you get genuine human subjectivity. And as long as you have that, people are going to be mad. They're going to have conspiracy theories. Oh, we should have basketball people on the committee. We should have non-NCAA people on the committee, blah, blah, blah. Win enough games and you don't have to worry about it.
Seth Davis from CBS Sports joining us. Let's say Duke doesn't win the national title. Let's say Duke maybe bows out in the Elite Eight. Is there a scenario where Cooper Flagg would come back to Duke, in your opinion?
There's a better chance that I will play for Duke next year. And by the way, I do have eligibility than Cooper Flagg. There is zero chance. And he should, I would not suggest that anybody make that kind of a decision based on the NCAA tournament and what happens in the postseason. Who knows what happens in this tournament? He's going to be the number one pick in the draft. Yes, he can make good money coming back to Duke. He can make exponentially more going to the NBA. When Zion Williamson was about to make his announcement, he said, well, we don't know how serious he really was, but he actually talked to Coach K about this. And he said, what if I come back? Like, I had such fun. Like, what if I come back? And Kay basically told them, well, you don't have a scholarship here and you don't have a roster here. I don't want that on me. Go pro, go make your $100 million. So
what's Cooper Flagg get paid?
That's a great question. And you want transparency. That's what I'd like to know. I would guess neighborhood of 8 million all in, right? Between he's probably getting 2 from Duke and their whole collective. I mean, he's got his own New Balance.
He's got to get more from Duke than the guy at Kansas State got $2 million.
He got $2 million from their collective, but Cooper Flagg is a unicorn in terms of his market. I mean, he's got his own shoe deal. He's at the signature Nike school, and he's got a New Balance deal. That's pretty. that's my hats off to him, man.
But you don't want to.
Brown, I want to shout at his agent at CAA. That's pretty good.
You don't want to go to the Wizards, though.
You know what? It's funny. I grew up a Wizards fan, and I went down to Durham to interview Cooper Flagg and a couple of the guys for Fox Sports. I said to him, I said, you look pretty good in a Wizards uniform, but they're not going to win. Look, it'll be the most Wizards thing ever to not win. They're going to pick third or whatever the lowest
Well,
is.
weren't you a Bullets fan before?
Yes.
Then they became, because I remember seeing the Bullets with Wes Unseld.
Yes.
And Phil Chenier and Elvin Hayes.
Elvin Hayes. Yeah. Do you remember the old Capitol Center with that sort of concave roof?
Yeah.
Out in Landover, Maryland.
Yeah.
My dad used to take me to those games back in the day. We are old, Dan. We are old.
The transfer portal's effect on college basketball. Good or bad?
I think on balance, it's been very good. I think that I would like to see maybe for the second time transfer, you have to sit out here. That's really what happened. People talk about the portal. The portal is just a database that allows everybody to see who wants to transfer who doesn't and help you to get in touch. What really happened was it used to be if you transferred, you had to sit out a year, and it was only in like a couple of sports. So they got rid of that. And then they said, oh, okay, on the second transfer, you have to sit out a year, but we're going to have exceptions for hardships. And then everybody's uncle got super sick and they had to, go live near the uncle. And so they ended up getting rid of that. That's part of why, I'm hoping at some point it seems inevitable, Dan, they just make them employees, let them unionize, get a collective bargaining agreement, and maybe it gets rectified that way. But I see and I understand like when people will say, oh, these mid-major teams, they have a great player and then he can just transfer up, and that's not fair to the mid-major schools, but they can also get transfers from schools who are in lower divisions. And by the way, a lot of these players start off at those power conference schools and don't get a lot of minutes and they end up transferring down. So I don't think there's been any change in that regard. The best players are always going to go to the schools with the best resources. And so it's sort of manifesting itself differently, but this is, as far as I'm concerned, it's been that way since the beginning of time.
Well, look at Drake. They took players from Division II to fill out that roster. So you're right. You can go down lower if you need to. Give me two or three sneaky teams that they may not get to the Final Four, but they're going to create some havoc.
Well, Drake is definitely one of them. Ben McCollum came from D2, won national championships there, brought 4 players. And by the way, UC San Diego is another team. I've got them going to the Sweet 16. Actually, this is their 4th year in Division I, but there's a transition period so it's their first year being eligible for the tournament.
Yeah.
So those are hungry, but a lot of those guys came from Division II as well. What I like about Drake, Dan, and maybe this is someone that all the bracket filler outers can look out for. I do like teams that play a slow tempo because you get these stylistic contrasts. So they're playing Missouri, which likes to get out and go. And basketball better than anyone. It's much easier to take a team that wants to run and slow them down than take a team that wants to play slow and try to speed them up. So St. Mary's is another team that plays a slow tempo. Liberty, they're playing Oregon in the first round. That's my first round upset. I really like High Point as a 13 seed. They won their league last year, lost in the conference tournament, brought a lot of those guys back. They got a guy, Bobby Pettiford, who played at Kansas, now coming off their bench, and they've won all year. They won their league by 3 games. And then McNeese is the other one. Will Wade's got some serious high major athlete. I like High Point because they go 7 feet, 6'8" in the front court, and their 6 man is a stretch 4, 6'9". A lot of times those mid-major teams don't have the size up front that some of the high majors one does. So I like the Panthers of High Point.
Give me the vulnerable number 1 seed.
Well, I think it's Auburn. I mean, I don't think there's any question that they've lost their edge. I think the mantle of being as good as they are, as good as they've been in that league all season. Now, maybe they, rejuvenate themselves. Auburn's an amazing story, Dan, in that all of those guys, they got one guy, a freshman point guard, Tahad Pettiford, comes off the bench. He was a top recruit. Everybody else are Janai Broom is the player of the year, spent his first 2 seasons at Morehead State. I mean, they got guys who transferred from Division II. Chad Baker Mazzara came from junior college. So they need to get that back, like that chip on their shoulder. They're much better, like Seabiscuit, trying to play from behind.
Should there be an age ceiling? That I think the point guard for Creighton is 24. Is that right? I mean, should we get to the point where, maybe 23?
Well, I don't think it should be age. Obviously, I think it should be eligibility. And again, this is why we just need to get to collective bargaining, because the governor of West Virginia, what makes you more popular as a politician or an attorney general, prosecutor than, sticking up for athletes against the NCAA? One thing that is going to happen next year, the whole sport's going to get younger, because this is the last year of the quote unquote COVID senior. Everybody got an extra year of eligibility because of COVID. So you got guys who are playing, and if like you had a medical red shirt, but now like they're trying to make it so, and these judges are helping them out, that the junior college doesn't count against your clock. So you can play 2 years in junior college,
wow.
and now have 5 to play 4 in Division I. That's not going to last. Dang. It's craziness, I tell you.
We'll talk to you during the tournament. Always great to connect with you.